Good morning, Dave Moss.
No.
Oh, it's Cory. Oh shit! All right.
Hey, come on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Dave doesn't ride.
At the gate, they said Dave Moss Tuning was here.
He's right behind me.
You guys know what DMT is, other than Dave Moss Tuning? It's a trip. Hi, Dave Moss.
Good morning, Shiv. How are you?
Good. Oh, 6 feet. Sorry.
Easy on the distance.
Oh my God.
I'll look away while you give me a map.
Here.
6 feet, B group, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Corona testing.
C19, look out.
Corona testing. Hello, hello.
Corona testing.
Corona not testing.
Oh, there we go. Perfect. I guess I should welcome everyone, shouldn't I? To the second. There's a second video of a comparison video on our YouTube channel. Shiv happens. I'm Shiv.
Happens.
That too. As you can see, we're playing it very safe. We're maintaining
B group passing distances.
Right there. Yeah.
Oh, don't touch him! We've had people comment that we're not following the proper safety precautions issued by the state, so we are doing our best to make this test completely compliant with the state's safety regulations.
Yeah.
As we were on our ride today. Totally
Absolutely.
safety and compliant.
That'll work.
Absolutely. I'm glad you pointed that out.
100%.
Yeah. So let's start by introducing everyone, and I'll hand the mic over to let's go by seniority. Dave Moss.
Hi, everybody.
What do you do, Dave? Explain your business, explain your racing pedigrees, explain what you do.
I try and save a life every day through education and training for people that ride motorcycles, no matter what your level of experience, knowledge, whether you're new, current rider, or returning rider, and provide all the resources I can online through the website, YouTube channel, Facebook, so that you can pick up a tool, feel confident, and get to work to understand that factory settings work for no one.
But Dave, did you mention suspension anywhere there?
No.
But isn't that kind of your thing?
Yeah, kinda. Suspension's a big part of that. The coaching, road and track is a big part of that too. Racing's the only selfish thing I used to do.
Okay.
So that was fun.
All right.
But primarily my goal is to help people all over the world and leverage technology to do that.
You guys probably already know who Dave Moss is, because you probably, if you're watching this channel, chances are you've been to a racetrack, you have done suspension seminars at one point, and you probably met him regardless of wherever you are in the world. Dave, anything else? Is that? Oh,
No,
why don't you
okay.
plug your website?
Everything is DaveMossTuning.com. Help yourself.
Brilliant.
Brilliant.
Next up is a very fast rider, which I keep on hearing, have heard rumors about for years when I started my track day, exercises. Cory Call.
How you doing, everybody? My name is Cory Call. I'm just a diehard motorcyclist. That's what I do. I work for San Jose BMW and sell BMW motorcycles. I've been road racing motorcycles professionally since about 1995. I cut my teeth in 91 when I got my road race license, and ride every day. I rarely drive four wheels, and just all around enjoy every type of motorcycling there is.
Cory, you can brag your racing accomplishments. What's the story here? Come on.
Man, I've been I guess the biggest accomplishment that I'm still able to do it at almost 50 years old, and I can keep up with the probably the top 1% in the United States. Just rigor and repetition, lots of it, lots of track days. I work for Carter's at the track. I do. I'm an instructor with I think Northern California's best track day provider there is.
I agree.
And I spend a lot of laps and ride a lot of miles every year. Typically about 100,000 miles a year I put down on a motorcycle.
Cory, what's your lap time at Underhill on your track bike?
I've dipped into the 47s quite a few times.
And I should probably talk of myself since I'm also here. My name is Shiv. hence the channel name Shiv Happens. I'm a former automotive journalist from the late 90s. I am 47 years old now, I think. 47, yes. No, 46, I apologize. I started an ECU tuning company back in 1999, which I've been doing now, I guess, for almost over 20 years, specializing in motorcycles and cars. These are all my test vehicles, which we develop parts on. My company's name is called Open Flash Performance. You can go to openflashperformance.com. If you're watching this, you know the purpose of this video is to, I was one of the lucky first ones to get my hands on a 2020 KTM S1000. Oh, I'm Cory rubbing off me. KTM Super Duke. I have been a KTM Super Duke owner now since 2014. I've had a 2015 model, which came out in 2014. I had that for a few years. We've tuned hundreds and hundreds of BMW. What's going on? Of KTM Super Dukes over the years. On my dyno nearby, we developed tunes for them. I love them. And I'll tell you, this bike is the first grounds-up redesigned of the Super Duke ever. So we figured there's enough people out there who are stuck in Corona lockdown looking for content, and what better way to give you content than test a highly anticipated bikes against its most, well-known rival, the Aprilia Tuono factory, and maybe a wild card, or as Cory calls it, a joker.
Yeah.
The 2018 MV Agusta 800RR. Oh, and by the way, the Aprilia is 2019, or was it? It's 2019 Aprilia. Is that it? It was. It's got the active Öhlins EC2 suspension, so it's, even though it's on a 2020, it's mechanically the same as 2020, just different livery. So, shall we begin, gentlemen? Sure. Let's start off with a suspension analysis, because that's what we kind of started the day off with, right? Dave came and he set up all the bikes without even us asking, because he's kind of weird that way. He just immediately comes to your bike and starts like
little OCD there.
You think so?
Yeah.
I think it's almost. I feel it's almost intrusive.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm glad you feel it was rude.
It's almost intrusive.
Yeah.
Like I'm not even looking at my bike, and I turn around, it's up on.
Already getting adjusted. How rude.
Yeah.
And he's asking.
I'm proud of it.
God damn.
Because if we're all going riding on a motorcycle, I need to know where each one is, especially as we have frequent stops, what needs to change and why based on the format we had. So each of these has track tuning in them. So to start off with, knowing that, it was much better to go ahead and put a baseline in them across the board. So we've got something of a street setup in each bike, because we were not hauling the mail, we were not going to go to jail, and we were not stopping off at the track to do a couple sessions to do a comparo that way either. So, when you look at the MV, preload was all the way in on the front forks, rebound and compression were on maximum, settings on the rear shock, the preload was up to the moon. Even just picking the bike up off the kickstand, it wanted to fall the other side because it was so high in the air, it was so rigid. So at that point, it's, well, let's see what we've got for a baseline. So at least I know from a static side perspective, each bike is safe. So starting there guarantees that no matter where we go and what we do, we're not going to get hoiked out of the seat mid-corner. And for me, giving everybody the same platform to work from means that as we stop and each rider wants their individual changes, I understand why, and it gives me more knowledge about the bike.
Your first bike you rode was what? Which one?
First bike I rode today was the 2020 KTM Super Duke.
Okay.
And I really enjoyed it. It was a little bit different bike than what I'm normally used to. My track bike is a 2020 S1000RR. My favorite street bike that I commute on is a 2019 1250 GSA.
He is a BMW salesman, by the way.
I do work for BMW. I wished we could have had an S1000 single R. I think it would have been a good matchup for this test. Maybe the next one we'll include that.
And before you go on, it's also worth mentioning that throughout the course of this day, Cory was understood the bikes well enough and to know how they're behaving versus how they should behave, to communicate that to Dave. And listening to them, I'm sure I'll have some bits of those dialogues in this video as well. Communicating that to Dave is so invaluable. For example, if he was not here and Dave comes off to me and asks me, how'd that change work? I would be like, it did something. I don't know what, but it feels better, or maybe it doesn't feel better.
Slow the rebound dampening up a little bit. It just felt a little bit unsettled after it compressed into a bump. It'd take a second to calm down.
And then for me to be able to hop on that bike after these two set it up, it's like having a new bike. So when Cory first got on the bike today, the KTM, he had some problems, and can you explain that?
So it seemed to rebound a little bit quickly and at a little bit different rate for each end. When you got into some switchbacks, rights, lefts, G'd out some corners and got the suspension loaded, when it unloaded, it would change the geometry and give it a little bit of a wiggle, and it had to settle again. So when I conveyed that information to Dave, he made some subtle changes in it, and as we went through the day, it progressed to an amazing street bike that was really, really, really fun to ride.
All right, Dave, what was your first impression of the Super Duke?
I personally felt like a jockey on a horse. I was really surprised how short the pegs were to the tank and seat, that whole ratio. I was extremely trying to fidget and get my bum and feet set correctly riding it, because it felt like my feet were in front of my hips.
So if you had your druthers, you'd throw some adjustable pegs on it and maybe lower them 20 millimeters or so, huh?
I would want the pegs back under my hip, and then I'm not too worried about the knee bend, but having your feet there when you're riding is very unusual for me. I'm used to having my heels under the ball joint of my hips, so that threw me for a minute. And the reach is a lot further than you think it is.
Yeah. May I also point out that the pegs are adjustable on that bike, and they are set in the most rearward position. So you'd be even worse off in the standard position. Yeah, for sure.
So ergonomically, I was challenged right out of the gate. I couldn't ride the bike until I can settle. So I'm constantly trying to find the right position for me between putting my heel on the peg or the very front edge of my heel, and eventually settled on that space to then be able to sit on it and go, okay, well, I can fit this and ride it, but that's with a 30-inch inseat. So I don't know how that would relate to somebody else. So if you had a 26 to 28-inch inseam, you'd probably be comfortable as all get out on that thing.
Yeah, how tall are you? You are
5'9".
5'9". Cory, you're a tall guy.
6'2".
I'm 6. So yeah, I think Cory and I felt reasonably comfortable on the bike.
It didn't bother me.
Yeah. So there's going to be a very personal bias
exactly.
depending on leg length, size, flexibility, height, everything, right? So yeah, as far as engine performance and general dynamics, again, the dynamics we improved during the day through your adjustments. Can you explain what you did during the day?
So throughout this range of motorcycles, the forks have been generally firmer than the rear, which is what makes it that beautiful hooligan machine of just wheeling in any gear and picking the front up. So what we ended up combating was front end too high, rear shock too soft, and over basically the entire day, we were going in a little bit stiffer on damping for compression high and low, and then finding the right rebound setting for Cory based on his pace and his riding style with that bike. Now when I got on it after Cory rode it, I could see what he was saying and went further again in the same direction that Cory was asking for. So level sensitivity as a tuner, within half a mile I can see exactly what somebody's telling me and then go, right, well we need to do this. And obviously what we're going to do for you before I leave tonight is drop the front end 4 millimeters, because to me, Cory used the word long.
The bike felt long.
It felt long.
Way out there, the bike feels long, and it's not positive on steering, and you initiate with a plan. You don't just initiate and it's there. So in changing the geometry, it's a universal truth. Even though this is a ground-up design, it still has the same inherent characteristics of models previous to it in terms of chassis geometry and rear shock suspension compared to front firmness.
Even though the linkages, geometries are different, the general
Yep.
theory is the same.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Okay.
Because they've got to retain the hooligan part of that bike, which everybody adores.
Right.
So if you put a linkage system in instead of bolting it to the swing arm, you're still going to make it perform the same way, which you do on a dyno, and you figure out the curves. You look at the spring and the valving, and you go, that'll work great for this type of application that the end user is looking for.
So was it safe to say that we kind of took a car that, a bike out of the showroom, which is designed to be a hooligan bike, and actually kind of adjusted it to make it a performance bike for someone like Cory?
To try and give him the best of both worlds.
Okay.
In twisting, moving, getting the bike to go, a lot of stability on that initiation into the corner, and then leveraging that long wheelbase for mid-corner stability so he could get on the gas earlier, which of course results in that wonderful sensation in the front end coming up when you leave the corner.
Staying at the speed limit at 100-mile-an-hour wheelies, it was really hard all day long.
It's highly discounted from what these guys have to say, but my first general impression of the new Super Duke compared to the old Super Duke is vast improvement. The old one was kind of agricultural, fun, endearing, silly, would send the front wheel up instantly with a little bit of throttle application. Not especially fast A to B, but very exciting A to B.
Entertaining.
Entertaining, correct. I know it's rated at 3 more horsepower than the old one.
What was the horsepower it made?
Jesus, almost 172 wheel horsepower. That's on my Dynajet, which reads conservatively. The old ones, they make about 155, 153. So that's a massive, massive improvement in power.
What was the torque like on it?
104 foot-pounds. Peak torques are like, I don't know, 6,000 RPM or 7,000. It was high up there. So you're immediately amazed by the amount of torque you have when you roll on 3,000 RPM, but then it just gets sillier. Yeah. And it has the top end pull that you wouldn't anticipate. They wouldn't expect from a big V twin.
I didn't expect it.
No.
It's a rever. Like it likes to breathe. The higher you rev it, the more it accelerates. The funner it gets.
Yeah, it's actually kind of terrifying unless you're like someone like these guys. It's with the old bike you get in that power band, and then in the low you get that low end torque, you get the mid range torque, but then you kind of up top it kind of dies down. You can kind of catch your breath again,
yeah,
and then grab the next gear. This thing gets more sadistic as you go up the revs.
It liked to be ridden like a inline four.
It's bizarre.
Yeah.
It's bizarre.
It almost taunts you when you're down in the 3,000 to 7,000 RPM range of what?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's ridiculous, and it's got 300 miles and not even broken in yet. It's the engine. I've never ridden anything like that on 2 wheels.
Yeah.
Shiv.
Yeah.
It's broken in now.
As for everything else, suspension's more planted. It transitions left to right better. It's far less wheelie prone with that rear linkage. So instead of getting all this rear squat under acceleration, it just kind of goes straight. And
it did have really good drive. It didn't just wheelie and pivot over the axle. It really pushed you forward. You had to kind of provoke it to do wheelies. When you did, it was ready to go, but it drives out of corners really hard.
And that's what KTM, I believe, kind of aimed for. They wanted to make a more sophisticated, more mature, more universally usable bike, not just a silly wheelie machine. And they did that. It's blindingly quick in most any condition. Great brakes. It's got the Stylema calipers, same calipers as the Panigales, the RC4 1100s. As a matter of fact, I think the only other bike that's going to have those, only other naked bike that's going to have those is the new Street Fighter. So hardware-wise, it's there. I almost feel like KTM understated the improvements that they made over the previous generation. I expected to get something incrementally better. And it didn't take more than the first ride to realize how much better it is. It's more compliant. It's more comfortable. The engine is not as vibey. It is vibey, but not as vibey. It just works. And the electronic package is the same kind of electronic package on my V4R. It is world class on a naked bike. So that's my 2 bits on that bike.
Always undersell your product.
And they said 3 more horsepower than the previous bike. It makes 15 more horsepower. If there's nothing that undersell more than 15, if that's a perfect example of underselling a bike.
Exceeding expectations is the best marketing technique.
Incredible, incredible.
What is that, under promise and over deliver?
Yeah, that's rarely. You know what's funny? I'll give you this. You know who else does that? BMW, but for their cars. Cory, the next bike you rode, that was the Tuono.
Tuono.
First impressions.
Wow, this thing is comfortable, and it was very smooth. The KTM, the first impression, very, very first thing I noticed, I kept hitting the I think it's the resume button with my knuckle. They kind of have this weird switch casing that, I kept catching on my left thumb knuckle, and the foot pegs, I could feel engine vibration through them. When I got on the Aprilia, the seat was smooth and plush. The engine vibration, super duper smooth, like incredibly smooth. Handlebars were a little bit lower on the Aprilia. It had a very smooth power band, but to me it felt kind of like when the R1, the first cross planes came out. They had that incredible like bottom end and mid range punch, but then they just kind of flattened out, kind of petered out on top, and that's it. It felt very similar to that to me. Like it had that great mid-range, and then you're like, oh man, this is going to be awesome, and you're waiting for that top-end rush to come in like the KTM.
Which is weird to say when I hear that say out loud.
Yeah,
weird for the top-end rush to
the
come in like
top-end
the
rush
KTM.
on a V-twin on a naked bike, which is hooligan. You're thinking it's got all this grunt and stuff that it's got, but it still carries on like an inline 4-cylinder on top. The Aprilia kind of let me down with that, We were on some tight back roads today, and I was using that mid-range and really liking it. And as soon as we came out of a corner and there was a straightaway, I really revved the thing out, and then it just kind of let me down. I was like, oh, okay, well.
But to be fair, when you say let you down, it terrifies me and most everyone else who rides it if you rev it out. Cory, it's different breeds, so by no means...
It's not slow by any means.
Don't expect to be disappointed unless you're at this level.
Where the KTM would lock the wheel on the slightest rise in the road in 6th gear as the revs came up, the Aprilia just didn't do that. It was, dare I say it was slightly more comfortable. I would say probably for a city bike and somebody that's going to be commuting and using it as a commuter bike and just kind of ripping around, probably a little bit more practical than the KTM. After I got on the Aprilia, I was like, man, I really like this. This is comfortable. This bike's badass.
As a matter of fact, within 3-4 minutes of riding, you slowed down. When I was behind you, the only time I could come up to you was when you slowed down, and you just gave me a thumbs up.
Yeah, I really liked it. We stopped. Dave made a couple more changes to the KTM.
Suspension changes.
The suspension changes. I rode the MV. I was pretty disappointed on that. And then I got back on the KTM again. And at first, like after going from the KTM to the Aprilia, okay, I think I like the Aprilia better. Rode the MV and then got back on the KTM. Then the KTM took my top spot. That was my pick. I like the KTM.
That's your favorite bike.
That was my favorite.
All right.
If I was going to spend my money, that would be the one.
That it's funny because throughout the course of the day, the comments you made, never made any negative comments about anything, but you effused upon the goodness of the Aprilia.
Yeah.
Because it's hard once the road starts turning and you start braking, accelerating, turning. Not much can touch it.
Yeah.
You can tell it's a super bike with bars, right?
Yeah.
So I had you pegged for the Aprilia being your winner.
Halfway through the day, that was the one that I thought I was going to go with.
Yeah.
It seemed to shift a little bit smoother than the KTM.
Quick shifter, the auto blipper.
The auto blipper and quick shifter. It was just a little less notchy on the shifting, and the programming felt just slightly better.
We're picking nits here. I mean,
yeah,
we're
nitpicking.
Yeah.
And the MV was good. It was good. That's a really good running 600cc naked bike.
800.
Oh.
Yeah, Yeah,
800.
Okay.
800.
800 triple.
Oh, it just felt
Eight.
like a 600.
Oh, God. Okay, fine. All right. Go ahead.
Just
Continue.
saying.
I think if I would have rode that one first, it wouldn't have felt like a 600. But after you get off the torque on these big bikes and you get on that 800, you really see how good these
That's
open
why
class motors
I
are.
included it just
Yeah.
to make us realize how fast these things. Well, that's not really the reason. I just wanted to because there's three of us. We need 3 bikes, so I
Yeah.
included it.
You're
Right.
wanting me to fix it.
Yeah, that's true. I needed. Dave used to race MVs, or what do you race? F3,
F3 800.
and so he's got the suspension kind of sorted out. MVs are notoriously stiff and unyielding on the road, and I needed someone to fix it for me. I put a K-Tech rear shock in it. We're getting out of the point here. Fact is, it's selfishly included in the test, so he would fix it for me. And he did, and it's wonderful. Despite what Cory says, I will defer with him in this one area.
I will give the MV props and direction changes. The direction change, the steering inputs, it cut like a scalpel. It just razor sharp in the direction changes. The chassis felt pretty good. The suspension was soft. The shifting was notchy. The power delivery was good.
Well, it was soft when you rode it.
Yeah.
When I had it before Dave helped out, it was just like a bucket board. It was just like it would only work on smooth roads. Anything bumpy, it would rattle my teeth out.
And probably one of the worst seats I've.
Yes.
The seat was so soft. There was no support. It felt like I was sat on it, smashed the foam right down to the frame rails, and that's what I was sitting on.
It's an Italian superbike seat.
Dave, why don't you continue about the Tuono, and then you can start making fun of the MV if you want.
Actually, for the Tuono, because I've owned a factory Aprilia before, I've always had a real love affair with the V4 engine, and I had a 400 VFR that I raced as well. So I know how creamy smooth and wonderful
So
those
smooth,
engines
so
are.
smooth.
That's why they never change it. It's all like they make small little improvements, and they.
And I know how good Aprilia's electronics are. So I didn't want to come into this with a preordained definition of, well, I know and love this brand and model, and it's been a long time since I've ridden a twin. So for me, what really was a huge disappointment with the Tuono is when I sat on it, I felt like I was on a cruiser because the handlebars go down.
Yeah.
Do they? Yeah, they do. Look at that. Yeah.
And so that was just every bike I ride, I come from discovery only, no visual preconception.
Right.
So as soon as I sat on it, I was even more hunched up. It's an even shorter peg to seat ratio. And then my hands are doing this. And I'm like, oh, what? And my hands felt like they were level with my knees.
Yes. Yes.
So I was immediately uncomfortable. And there was no way to get out of that.
And what's funny because he thought it was comfortable.
So the seat. The seat is what I really enjoyed, and the gas tank and that intersection right there, that felt really good. The KTM was a little bit sharp. The sides of the seat were kind of sharp. You could feel the edge. Didn't really bother me so much. Now the MV.
Speedback City, man.
What?
Yeah, they made a lot of weird.
The
choices
rear
there.
sets and the edges of the gas tank, like I don't know what they were thinking there. Like,
Yeah.
Style.
it made me ride pigeon-toed. It pushed my heels out and my toes were in. I think they have to keep your feet off the exhaust on the side, so they got these like winglets on the side that push on like the ball, your ankle bolt.
Insert video here.
Yeah,
Okay.
just
Yeah, it's dumb in those areas.
Yeah.
The seat, you're right. The cushioning is soft, so it's so soft that it immediately goes to like the hard part.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
And the edge of the seat
yeah.
is non-cushioned, so you got unless you have like a 6-inch thigh gap, which some people have, I guess.
Yeah.
You're going to just basically smash your inner thighs against this hard metal rail in the seat cushion. Not comfortable.
And when you're gripping it with your knees, there's like an edge at the bottom of the gas tank. Like, so I like to squeeze with my knees so I can take some of the weight off my hands when I'm, and it just wasn't.
Yeah,
it wasn't.
almost all bikes, if you look at the gas tanks, they're designed for your knees to clamp on, your thighs to clamp on. Apparently, the designers at MB didn't think that was
as important as the way it looked.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to disagree.
Yes.
Because for my inseam, I could ride that all day. With the right seat.
Yes.
Because ergonomically, that for me was 100% comfortable for hours on end. If the seat was redone with memory foam and blah, 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 even the peg to seat ratio and the reach from your belly button to the bars, that for me was like sitting on a comfy chair, ergonomically. So if I fix the seat on that and fix the suspension, that thing just to ride for hours on end, from that point of view, was by far the most comfortable for me.
Well, that goes to show you.
Because I'm the shortest guy.
Yeah.
And I've probably got the shortest inseam, so it worked.
Well, I'll agree to disagree.
Me too. I mean, I love the MV. I bought it. I love it. I think in that small area of performance that it excels in, it's brilliant. It steers better than any bike I've ever ridden. I mean, it
does. The steering, like I said, it carves corner. You know, the direction changes is.
And the front end feels amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, the feel to the bars of how much traction that front tire has is I've never felt that before. It's like the weird Italian formula. Like they get a lot of things wrong, but they get a couple things so right.
Yeah.
And as long as you appreciate those things and those things become your focus point, you'll never be unhappy with it. Yeah, you got to overlook some stuff, and I think I'm somewhat biased because I think it's achingly beautiful. I cannot get myself to sell that bike or replace it with something, despite it not being really well fit for my size. I don't fit on it like Dave does, but something about the way it sounds, the way it vibrates, the steering response, the steering feel, and also Cory might not like the fact it only has 120 wheel horsepower. I kind of do because it makes me feel like I can rev it out and ride it like Cory rides the big bikes. Not like he rides big bikes, but I mean that same rev it to red line without really wanting to feel like I'm going to kill myself.
You're in a time warp and everything.
Yeah.
To a pencil point and.
Yeah, it's accessible. It's exploitable.
For me, if I'm going to ride one of these, I want something I can ride all day without thinking about riding.
Right.
So that gave me the most natural seating comfort. The KTM engine was below 5 was just, don't insult me.
Yeah.
Once you got it from 5 and spun it up from there, then it was just this engine that starts to giggle. And like Cory says, once you get it, now you start getting it up there over 8, and you're just going, ooh.
This is awesome.
Yeah!
and speaking of front end feel, I really like the front end on that Tuono. Yeah. How much did I want to change the suspension on the Tuono today?
You made almost no changes to it.
I made no changes to it.
Yeah.
What do you need to change? Nothing?
Yeah.
I really liked the...
Apart from bottoming the shock out,
yeah,
you've blown the seal.
Yeah, it was a little bit soft on the section of road that I hammered through. There was some very positive camber right and left over some hills there, and I smashed the suspension really good, but it didn't.
But to be fair,
it didn't flail.
Nothing broke, right?
No.
There's no seal.
No,
fail.
Yeah. No matter what.
Yeah.
You will bottom the suspension somewhere somehow.
Right.
Until it's dialed in for you. So, what setting did you have on it though, when Cory rode it? Because it's electronic.
It was the default A1 setting, the track setting with track mode. Okay. So the suspension was active 1, which is the stiffest, most track-oriented version. Everything zeroed out, and that's how you liked it.
Yeah, it felt good
with the factory default settings from Aprilia.
It was smoother than the KTM. The KTM, I don't want to say I complained, but I was trying to tune out the sharp edge bumps on the compression stroke on the KTM. I was working on tuning that out all day, and the rebound wiggle out of the KTM we had to work on that.
Right.
The Aprilia, it didn't have any of that.
That was 3/4 a day working out that wiggle. That's why I kept on putting you back on that bike.
Yeah.
Because we knew we wanted to get to the point whether, hey, is that wiggle just innate with the bike? If it's innate, then we got to know it's innate with the bike. That's just the way that bike is. But again, that's not a fair test. If it's not innate, we want to fix it, and we want, or at least get as best as possible to be able to make a fair conclusion at the end, which Dave helped us immeasurably with.
Right.
So yeah, you love the
freeway ride home.
Yeah.
I took the KTM. I rode the KTM in the beginning, the Tuono in the middle, and then the MV at the end of our ride to the last section of hard twisties. And then when we stopped, before we had to get back on the road to head back to the shop here,
Dave did a little magic at that little
yeah,
stop.
I did that last little bit, and that just pushed the KTM, pushed that Tuono out of the #1 spot in my mind back to #2, and then the KTM ended up taking the cake for me.
So you're saying through persistence
Yeah.
and someone knowledgeable being able to dial into your liking, you got to feel that bike at its optimal for your purpose.
Right. And still, I think there's still more improvement to be made for sure.
Like dropping the front end. Like
where
you
the
said,
Tuono,
yeah.
I didn't change anything. I was like, man, this thing is good. Where it just let me down was the shape and the feel of the handlebars, and the flat top end on it. And then once we got the KTM suspension closer to where that Aprilia was, then that engine took the cake and made me change my mind back to I like the KTM better.
It's also safe to say that Aprilia the reason why it's so good is that it's an old bike.
Right.
It's been refined, and Aprilia doesn't just throw shit at the bike. They make small improvements to geometry, components, braking components, suspension components. And with this Öhlins EC2 suspension, that a lot of people, a lot of other companies employ on their bikes now, Aprilia does a bang-up job calibrating it.
But to be fair, you said that's a different seat on the Aprilia?
Yes, that is an Aprilia gel seat. It's Aprilia Performance Part gel seat.
And you have tuned it, and it has an exhaust.
Yes, and so it's even flatter without the tune. So it's got a slip-on with a race slip-on, if you know what that means.
Uh-huh.
And it's got a remap, and it makes about 10 horsepower more than stock.
Okay.
And it has more top end than stock.
So if we really compared,
KTM would be even higher.
okay.
Yeah.
There'd be another 2 steps on the ladder.
Yeah. And it wouldn't sound as good as it sounds also.
Okay.
So it would be muted, less responsive, less smooth.
Yeah.
Especially the stock bikes snatch your on-off throttle.
Uh-huh.
Because the calibration light I put in has overrun, meaning that the injectors don't shut off when you close the throttle. So you get the nice pop.
So on that note, when you first handed me the key to the KTM this morning, we turned all the rider aids off and put it in race mode, or
okay. Cory, the first thing he asks is, "What's this traction control bullshit?"
turn it off.
And I told him, "Oh, it's impressive. It's got spin control and it does all this. It can control spin coming out of corner." He's like, "Turn it off."
Yeah,
turn that off.
That controls the spin coming out of the corners. Which I never got any today, by the way. None. None.
And then then we come to a stoplight, and I see him fly by me, and he stops, and he goes on a comments, "What the shit is this?" I go, "What?" He goes, "I can't do a stoppie."
Yeah, the ABS on the front, like soon as the back wheel thought about coming off, it just had this horrible ABS pulse.
It's the anti-lift feature.
Yeah,
it unbrakes the front tire to keep your rear wheel from coming up.
Yeah.
So what we do, we put it in. It's magic. The engineers know that people like Cory exist, so they have a supermoto mode, which eliminates that feature. It just only applies ABS to the front tire, allows the back to come up, and allows the rear tire to lock.
Which brings me to one super annoying point on the KTM.
Okay.
Every single time we stopped, what did you have to do?
I had to go through this finger gymnastics on the toggle switch
Every damn time. It took 3 to 4 minutes to turn all this stuff back off.
No, at 30 seconds.
30 seconds.
30 seconds. You're just
It felt like 3 to 4 minutes.
Because you race bikes and you're
You're
impatient.
just annoyed. You're like me on a track day where I've got a bike coming up with a dash and buttons and this instead of click, click, go. Oh, God.
Yes,
Here we
yes.
go.
It's 30 seconds most. But to be fair, I got the bike so early that they were delivered without instruction manuals. Apparently, you can set up there's the little quick cheat buttons that you can set up like presets, like C1 and C2, to directly access parts of the menu that would take 4 or 5 clicks to go through. So yes, it would probably be less annoying if I had an instruction manual to figure out how to get that stuff working or took the time to do so. But yeah, I generally believe that with the Aprilia, it's on. Everything works. Turn it on. You don't have to fuck with anything.
Right.
Sorry.
And the it wasn't, in my mind, again, I'm a BMW guy, whether it's a GS or an S1000, the controls on the left handlebar weren't very intuitive. MTC, like that what is that
Yeah, it's
even?
KTM talk. MTC is motor traction control, and MSR is motor slip regulation. Yeah,
Everybody's got to have
it's Austrian.
Yeah, it didn't make sense to me, so I'm gonna give that the thumbs down on it. But the motor made up for that. Never did figure out how to work the cruise control.
Yeah, I don't know how to. I gotta get the manual. I keep pressing the cruise button, but it doesn't do anything. Right?
It almost feels like the button doesn't move. Like it's like, is there like a pin you got to pull out to?
And count for 6 seconds.
Well, I say that because the BMW, you have to slide the switch over so you can move the cruise control button.
Well, Austrians, they might be do things differently with this.
So that it was just a habit to me to shut the motor off so I could talk, and then we're getting ready to go again. Oh, Shiv, can you come over?
Then he beckons me, and I come over with my little gimp outfit.
Yeah.
And I go, yes, master, and I press these buttons, and
so that was kind of annoying. And KTM, get your poop in a group and like send the owner's manual with the PDI packs with the bikes. I think that should be
spoken like a true salesman.
Well,
Look
I'm
at that.
sure the hacks for that will be out as soon as the owners are made.
Well, the old
Within
bikes.
4 days.
Well, the old bikes had a dongle you could put underneath your seat. That once you plug it into the diagnostic port, it saves all your settings. So it's kind of like an anti-safety mod you can buy.
The next video from Shiv Happens is how to work the left handlebar switch on a KTM.
I will actually do that just to make Cory happy.
Less than 2 minutes.
Yes.
Yes. And
30 seconds or less.
Well, that's because you're on it. We need to go.
Yeah.
wait, sorry, where do we leave off? You were talking about Tuono, right? You were talking about Tuono?
No, we're good.
We're good.
Like I said, the ergonomics of the Tuono threw me off because the handlebar came down and my knees were
They got
up
a
and
drop
my
on the
hands
bars.
felt like this, and I could not for the life of me get comfortable. I was so shocked by the drop part of the handlebar that it felt like a cruiser, and I was so taken aback with that and preoccupied with it.
Right.
And then again trying to adjust myself to kind of push my feet forward a little more and put more weight onto the tank so I could get a better feel and grip of the bars, which took
Do you think
2-3 miles.
if we loosen the handlebars and rotated them up,
Which they can do.
it'd bring the drop more of a roll back versus a drop down? Like maybe they needed to
Always.
be rotated forward a little
Yeah.
bit.
They can
And
do
the
that.
Same with the KTM.
Yeah.
To me, that I would have loved to have those KTM bars just a little bit closer to me.
Aha, well, they have extra bolt holes. You can do that.
So the part there is you can put your handlebar where you want. For me, the big thing was the KTM fit my shoulders perfectly with my fist just outside the ball joint, whereas the Aprilia felt wider. So as I'm going into a corner, because my fists are down, I'm feeling this motion versus that motion.
You're just a prima donna.
So
Just a prima donna.
Yeah.
He needs his ball joints at a certain location.
Yeah.
yeah, well, guess what comes with age?
Oh,
You
yes.
get what you want.
Damn
You
it.
take that colored pill out of your fishing tackle box today so you can be this person. But the bars on the MV were so wide, I felt like I was trying to rodeo a bull off the horns. It was out here. It's so ungainly for me in terms of the ergonomics on that one. But
And the fact that it steers so quickly, having so much leverage, almost makes it steer too quickly. Meaning, like, you have to think about it. You can't just, it requires...
Transitioning, like
Yeah.
Cory says, it's a scalpel. So therefore, if you use a scalpel, you use it with finesse.
Finesse, exactly. Yeah.
So with that comes the fact that with the KTM, the front wheel's a long way out, whereas the Aprilia is closer in. To me, the Aprilia felt still a little bit high in the front, requiring initiation and stay with the initiation until the bike was on its side, then you could control the radius with the throttle. But that buttery smooth motor made it, for me, way smoother through the corners, because over a wider RPM range, the motor was much more user-friendly.
Hey, and
But
you
once
mentioned...
you got the KTM up over 4,500,
Right.
it was just captivating. Because you just wanted the next corner and the next corner and the next corner, so you could just revel in this marvelous engine.
Yeah, that bike has I've never felt so comfortable pulling wheelies on corner exit than I do on the KTM.
Oh God, that was fun.
I mean, not
Literally
just the fact,
every single corner
not
exit.
just the fact it has the power torque to do it, but something about sitting kind of neutrally without hunched over. It seems like your body has like a better equilibrium, so you can. For someone like me, remember, for me it's comfort. It's. I'm always tempering fear with comfort, right? You can do whatever you want and have, reasonably we think you're a lunatic, but for you it's comfortable. For me, being upright, feeling more balanced on my center, means that I can like in a race car. In a race car, when I'm strapped in my seat, got my harnesses on, and my seat is the proper height, and I can see over things, I can take liberties with things. I feel like I can push the vehicle harder without feeling like it's getting away from me. With that bike, the way I sit, the visibility I have, the way my body's kind of centered, I can feel the weight transfers better from my level of experience, and I can feel comfortable when the front comes up. When the front comes up, on the Aprilia, I feel like it's harder to balance from my skill level, because it drives really well, but it's more. It seems like it's got more inertia to lift. It lifts, but then I don't feel like I can hold it where I want to hold it like I can the KTM. Something about it just feels like it's on the center of a teeter. Like it feels very balanced once it gets up.
Yeah.
And that I found interesting because I'm not breaking any land speed records, but every time I get that front wheel up out of a corner, I feel like a hero. And for me, that's worth its weight in gold compared just to being able to go to A, B as a little bit quicker, because just that fun factor. Yeah, I'm sure on the Aprilia on a racetrack that is my backup track bike, and I love it. I haven't taken the KTM out yet. I don't think it'll be as quick generally. I think between the aero and the slipperiness nature of it, and the stability of the chassis, and just how competent it is, I think the Aprilia may be quicker, maybe not, I don't know, but doesn't matter. Doesn't matter to me. The KTM lets me be more stupid safely, while feeling safe.
And the other thing is, when everybody else is breathing and puffing and getting the wind back, you're ready to jump on the KTM and go again.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys finish your water and latte, and I'll be back in 20, and you're coming back with a grin getting off of it, and they're just about ready to get back on their bikes for the next run. So
yeah.
Just the entire package of that, in its completeness, to anybody who wants to ride it, almost any rider could jump on that and go do 60 to 100 miles an hour and have a great ride. And
grin stupidly the entire time.
And then anybody else that wants to just start exploring the engine and the power of the engine can get the giggle factor of that. And then somebody that's got the skill set like Cory can come off the corner and lift the front up and cross it up and put it back down and just be grinning, because the entire package is not parallel ported into the back of your head, but it's there in your wrist. And you know right away, as soon as you put it into that corner and you get to that throttle on point, you just start grinning. There's
that connection. That it's you know, I brought something midday where my fear was that given your level of riding and your level of riding and my level of riding, which is much lower than you guys, that we would all naturally gravitate to different bikes. That maybe I would like the KTM more because I can't really necessarily exploit the Aprilia like a race bike on the street. I wouldn't want to. And then you guys would be able to do that more comfortably, and you would kind of gravitate towards the Aprilia. But it's impressive that KTM made a bike that can appeal to such levels. You know, I mean, that's the takeaway here. Like someone like me, you know, not an amateur rider, a quick amateur rider, versus you guys who've raced, accomplished racers, that you can find something in that you also like more than other bikes. That's not normal. That's not something in the world of cars. That's rare. In the world of bikes, that's rare. You know, usually
street bike. I don't want something that frightens me. I
Yeah.
want something that
Inspires confidence.
makes me laugh.
yeah.
I've got a 1250 Bandit that I go get groceries on because that's what it's designed to do. Would I rather go get groceries on that? Sure. Do they sell a pannier rack?
They do. They see a little. No, they have little things in the back. They're going to release little clips.
Oh, I forgot milk.
Yes.
Oh shit, I forgot water.
Yeah.
Oh no, I don't have bread. Ding ding
Yep.
ding ding.
Yep.
Because you want to go ride it.
Yeah. That thing I've got to balance. I'm glad you guys came because, you know, me, I always have to figure out whether am I drawn to it because it's my newest bike? Is it my least familiar bike? Will I get tired of it in 6 months? No, I don't think I will. I think it's just that exploitable and accessible and fun. Not to say that Aprilia isn't that. It's a brilliant bike, and the fact it's so brilliant after all these years is a testament to just the general, you know, design of it, right? But you know what? There is something to be said about a bespoke naked bike, something that's not derivative from a sport bike like the MV and like the Aprilia. There is something to say about that. There's merit to some early level design choices they make when they say, listen, we're going to make a naked street bike. And we're going to make the best one we can. We're not starting off with a chassis from a super bike. I mean, does that make sense?
Yeah. And the V4 engine is the best mathematical engineering engine you can have.
Right.
Because you can do anything at any RPM. But at some point, like Hondas used to be considered vanilla, and just bulletproof workhorses that will work for everybody in every environment. You know, where do we go now as riders? Well, for a road bike, we want something with soul and character. And the Aprilia's got that with its engine, and it's got that with its usability of the engine. And it does it in that pleasure zone incredibly well.
Yeah.
Right, and that's why I think I liked it. You know, the first ride on it, I was like, oh, I like this one the best. But then, as you would say, the KTM kind of made the Aprilia feel a little vanilla.
I'll come out and say it. My favorite KTM, close second the Aprilia. The MV has my heart. I can't say it won, but it has my heart. All right, Cory.
The Aprilia won at first, a little bit more refining, a little bit more time in the saddle. KTM took the cake.
So KTM won it ultimately.
KTM won it.
And second place, what would you say?
I would say the Aprilia is a close second, and the MV I just didn't like it. It wasn't comfortable. The performance wasn't there for me. It just ergonomically didn't fit. You know, just too many.
Okay, we get it. Fine, enough of your shitting on.
Designed with passion, done by fun.
And Dave Moss, verdict.
Just because every time I got to fire it up and get back on it, it created a huge smile.
It makes you giggle.
It's been a while since I've ridden a bike where that 18-year-old comes out. The Aprilia engine I know and love, and it's always there. It's always been dependable. I just want to change the handlebar, and I'm sure I would have an absolute blast on that because the suspension is so more refined. So very close overall, but For me, if I'm going to buy a bike, how much am I going to smile when I ride it? How much am I want to go ride it? How much, when I look at it, am I enthused? So,
Impressive. Brand new bike, out the box, totally stock versus 2 modified competitors. Wins.
Yep.
You know, they're all winners here. Maybe in me and Dave's
we're all
mind.
different.
Yeah. I think
Somebody else
Corey thinks there's definitely one loser here. But KTM guys, you're in for a treat. This bike's amazing, and
Drop the front end.
Yeah.
And put a
yes.
stiffer shock spring if you're over 200 pounds.
Good point.
Drop the front end 4 millimeters, maybe 6. Stiffer shock spring in the rear, up at least a rate, and that thing will still do everything that it does, but it'll be a lot more balanced, which is what we're trying to get
Who
for.
does he think he is?
Guys, cheers.
Thanks for watching,
Thanks for
Cheers.
watching.
and we will see you
Brought to you
next time.
by Corona.
Okay. Delicious.
Are there 17 left now?
I think we finished. Well, this is the number 19. I think we finished off 18. No, you're still working. Are you?
I'm gonna live on the edge here.
Oh, close that mask.
Probably why when you're hard in a corner at the front, it's raked out, so you're like trying to force it to turn. And that's the key with this thing is if normally on these the forks are usually 3 to 7 millimeters too high, and that's where that long bite feeling comes from. So inevitably on these, I always
Bring the forks up.
bring the forks up a minimum 4, but most people are happy at 6,
Yeah.
and that corrects that bread truck
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah,
chopper
yeah.
feel.
And Dave, what are you doing to the MV after that brief ride?
So rebound at 3/4, compression at 1 3/4, preload at 0, and then as far as the shock setup goes, that was tremendously better. We've got the bypass now at 8, we've got compression at 14, and we've got rebound at 12. And that was just a joy to ride through those nice long sweepers. And we're still not getting even wear because some of the circles go really high and then they disappear. So we're still too stiff on compression. So I think if we brought it back, leave the bypass at 10, put compression back to 14, and leave rebound at 10, I think that will be the next. And that we're within 2 clicks right now, literally within 2 clicks. So we'll reset this, and then somebody else can have a crack on it and see what they think.
Awesome.
That's a lot better in the front. Rear. Obviously in track mode you're going to have a lot more compression. So there's all kinds of grey dots through here. So that's just a little on the firm side
Okay.
with the settings, so we need to take compression away. So as far as the shock goes, we need to soften it.
Okay.
All of the bumps that you had from the track are still here as well. See them all?
Yes.
So definitely too firm on compression still. So we've got to soften the shock up substantially, and soften the front up just a tiny bit.